Part 25. Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 242. The rain breaks my heart, the wind brings tears. Dreams linger, love is far away. Xiao Xiao and Xiaoyu played flying chess while singing the song Tang Ning had just taught them. Both girls had standard lowly voices. Although their voices were immature and their breath was immature, their tone was cheerful and full of energy, which made people feel sweet when they heard it. Run Wang stood beside them. He was Xiaoyu's follower now, because she could not only write on white paper, but also cook delicious dishes, most of which he had never eaten. Tang Ning had seen Fang Xiaoyu's talent in cooking a long time ago, and surprisingly, Run Wang seemed to have this talent as well. The Fang family had the gene of foodies, Tang Ning was sure of this, both Fang Xinyu and Run Wang reflected this well. I don't know if there is a gene that determines whether the food is delicious or not. Tang Ning suspected that the Fang family should also have this gene. And Fang Xiaoyu had transferred her pursuit of food to cooking. Fang Xiaoyu had no friends in the capital, and so did Xiao Xiao, so they became very good friends. The two girls were of similar age and quickly became familiar with each other. Although Xiao Xiao was 2 years older than her, it seemed that Fang Xiaoyu was the older sister. Even the old beggar would prepare medicinal food for her every day. These days, she never went hungry again and her nutrition was sufficient, but her body had been weak for a long time, and it would take more than a day or two to change. Prince Run stood by and watched for a while, then ran to Tang Ning and asked, "Sir, do you think there are really fairies in this world?" Tang Ning looked up at the Tang fairy who was talking to Xiaoai and Xiru in the pavilion. It was really difficult for him to answer the question asked by Prince Run. If there were, he had never seen one in his 2 lifetimes, and the education he had received since childhood also told him that there were no fairies or spirits in this world. If there were no, think about it carefully, Tang Ning himself was actually a fairy different from the Tang fairy, and not a fox spirit like Sume. People often label things they cannot understand as demons and ghosts. From this point of view, Tang Ning meets this definition. Zhao Yuan looked apprehensive. If a snake spirit that has cultivated for 500 years can transform into a human form, then if there are demons around us, wouldn't we know it? Demons don't necessarily harm people. Tang Ning looked at him and said, "Aren't Bai Suhen and Xiaoqing good demons? Maybe there are demons who want to marry you." Zhao Yuan thought about it and shuddered, "I don't want to marry a demon. If I want to marry, I will marry a fairy." Prince Run is a strange child. Sometimes he shows wisdom that is not in line with his age, and sometimes the questions he asks are too stupid. Obviously, his emotional intelligence and IQ are not matched. Spring orchids and autumn chrysanthemums have their own merits. Demons and fairies also have their own charms. Only children will make choices. Adults, hee. Although Prince Run is very good at teasing people, after all, he is still just a child. The big sales of Legend of the White Snake soon set off a wave in the capital. Tang Ning originally thought that Mr. Tang would just put a few simple advertisements on the last page of each volume, but he actually changed the name of the medicine shop opened by the Tang family in the capital to Bao Hetang, which is exactly the medicine shop where Su Xian was an apprentice in the book. In addition, he also temporarily started a paper umbrella business, hired a skilled craftsman, painted illustrations of the Legend of the White Snake on the umbrella surface, and directly placed these customized paper umbrellas in front of the bookstore for sale, 5 taels of silver per umbrella, and the price of an umbrella was more than 10 times the price of a volume of the Legend of the White Snake. More importantly, those young ladies were actually willing to spend 5 taels of silver to buy an umbrella. No matter what he said, he was the father of Tang Yejing. Tang Ning couldn't let the clerk drive him away, nor could he charge him for stall occupation fees. Unexpectedly, this was not the end. Tang Ning didn't stop him, and he actually intensified it. In addition to making umbrellas for the Legend of the White Snake, Mr. Tang also made round fans, earrings of the same style as Bai Sohen, hairpins of the same style as Xiao Qing, and costumes for the two demons Qing and Bai. He made all the peripheral products that Tang Ning had not touched. The profit from this was greater than that from selling books, and Tang Ning was jealous. When Tang Yao Yao walked past him, Tang Ning could not help but wave to her, "Yao Yao, come here." Tang Yao Yao sat down opposite him and asked, "What's the matter?" Tang Ning told her everything he had just thought of, and finally sighed and said, "If we do these businesses ourselves, it may be more profitable than simply selling books. We have lost a lot this time." "How ridiculous!" Tang Yao Yao stood up angrily, "I'll go find him." Tang Ning also discovered in recent days that Tang Yao Yao is very suitable to be a housekeeper. When it comes to business and money, she never acts emotionally, and she is also clear with her father. Tang Ning is very relieved to hand over the money to her. "When I didn't know her well enough before, I actually thought she was a spendthrift. Now I think I shouldn't have done that." He didn't wait for Tang Yao Yao, but waited for Tang Keizu. Tang Keizu looked at him and said in a bad tone, "What kind of magic potion did you give Yao Yao?" Tang Ning was surprised and said, "What kind of magic potion did I give her?" Tang Keizu said angrily, "You didn't give her any magic potion. Would she come to ask me to share some of the profits from those businesses with you?" "Uncle, calm down." Tang Ning poured him a cup of tea, sat down and said, "Emotions are emotions, business is business." White Snake and Green Snake, we have registered the copyright at the Copyright Office of the Imperial College. Without the permission of Yao Yao and me, you can't use them for commercial purposes without permission. "Don't talk to me about copyright." Rich man Tang looked at him and said angrily, "Forget it. If you rob my daughter, now you even want to rob my Tang family's business. Are you still trying to take advantage of my Tang family's property?" Tang Ning slapped the table and said angrily, "Uncle, just forget about slandering me. How can you slander Yao Yao's innocence out of thin air?" Slander. Rich man Tang was even more angry than he was. "The huge foundation of our Tang family will be left to Yao Yao in the future. But now she has started business with you. I asked her to come back and take care of the Tang family's business. If they don't agree, isn't this robbery?" Tang Ning thought for a while, looked at him, and said seriously, "Yao Yao is a person, not a thing, and she is not a puppet. She also has her own ideas. Although Uncle Tang is her father, you cannot arrange everything for her. Besides, she is naturally strong. Haven't you noticed that she doesn't want to rely on the Tang family? She wants to achieve something with her own efforts." Rich man Tang narrowed his eyes at him and said, "You know her very well." Tang Ning said modestly, "I generally understand." "Is it generally known that she likes to drool while sleeping?" When Rich man Tang came, he was very aggressive and looked like he was going to attack the enemy. When he left, he seemed to be in a much better mood. Rich man Tang, who was not easy to deal with, was just dealt with by him. Looking at Tang Yao Yao walking in from the outside, Tang Ning said proudly, "How is it?" Tang Yao Yao hid the smile on her lips, spat secretly, looked at him and said, "You are nothing." He just said so many things for her, but she only remembered it's not a thing. Women's focus is always strange, and Tang Ning didn't bother to argue with her. He made an appointment with Xiao Ju and the others for dinner at Tianashanju. Thinking about it carefully, he had never seen Su Mei again since his wedding. The business of the Tang Grenzai branch is booming, and the first dividend has been given to them, followed by dividends once a month. Within a few months, their principal will be returned. Several people entered Tianashanju. Xiaoju looked at him with a strange smile on his face and asked, "Aren't you going to see Miss Su?" Lu Jun and others immediately started cheering, with smiles on their faces that both you and I understand. "Don't laugh so obscenely." Tang Ning looked at them and said, "Miss Su and I are just friends, just friends." Xiaoju shook his head and said, "Even if we are just friends, we should say hello when we come, right?" What he said was quite right. Tang Ning walked to the door of Su Mei's courtyard and knocked on the door. After a while, a head poked out of the door. It was the maid named Xiao Tao. "Ah," Xiao Tao shouted when she saw him, Miss, he's here again." Su Mei walked out of the room, her face looking a little bad. It seemed that she hadn't had a good rest these days. When Tang Ning saw the way she looked at her, she couldn't help but feel a chill running down her back. At this moment, Su Mei looked like a fox that had found its prey. Tang Ning said, "I don't talk." Su Mei walked up to him and said, "Come sleep with me." The look in her eyes made Tang Ning feel a little guilty. She took a few steps back and said hurriedly, "I have something else to do. I'll see you later." Su Mei reached out and touched his neck, then hugged him up, looked at Xiaoju and others who were standing outside the door, and said, "I have something to discuss with him. You can eat whatever you want today, and it's all mine of." The courtyard door closed with a bang. Xiaoju's body trembled and he came back to his senses. Lu Jun shook his head and said, "Sure enough, this fairy also falls into the mortal world sometimes." Gu Bai looked envious, covering his chest and murmuring, "I feel a little uncomfortable, please let me slow down." Xiaoju looked at the closed door. It's not like he didn't hear what Su Mei said just now. He didn't have anything to talk about. He clearly wanted to sleep. What pure friends! They were also pure friends. Why didn't they see him sleeping with her? Fortunate young gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 243. Remember 3Q Chinese website in 1 second, read wonderful novels for free without pop-ups. Hey, put me down. How can you behave in broad daylight? If you keep doing this, I'm going to call you. Su Mei looked tired, looked at him, and said calmly, "Just shout, this is my territory. Even if you shout until your throat is broken, no one will come to save you." Tang Ning was speechless. After a long time, she said, "We haven't seen each other for more than half a month. Why have you become such a gangster?" Tang Ning felt ashamed when Su Mei carried her into the room like a princess. What was even more shameful was that Xiaoju and the others saw her. The maid named Xiao Tao followed Su Mei the whole time. Su Mei threw him on the bed. Tang Ning's butt hurt a little from the fall, but her acupoints were touched and she couldn't rub them. She gritted her teeth and said, "You, please be gentle." He felt that Su Mei was not very friendly to him this time, and her attitude was a little different from before, so he couldn't help but ask, "I haven't seen you these days, and I haven't offended you, right? You also know that you haven't come to see me these days." Su Mei looked at him with a somewhat resentful expression. "Do you know that I haven't had a good night's sleep these days?" Tang Ning asked curiously, "How did you sleep before?" Su Mei thought for a moment and said, "Back then, I was used to it, but now I'm not used to it. It's all your fault. Women are indeed unreasonable." However, Tang Ning could also understand that this was probably the same as going from frugality to luxury, but from luxury to frugality. In 2 lifetimes combined, I had been single for more than 20 years and didn't feel anything. But once I said goodbye to being single, I knew the taste. You can never go back to the past. There are some things in this world that only happen 0 times and countless times. Tang Ning asked, "Is that sachet useless?" Su Mei said a little aggrievedly, "It was of some use in the first 2 days, but then it was of no use at all." As she spoke, she rolled Tang Ning into the quilt and rolled her to the corner of the bed. Then she lay down beside the bed. She put a smooth arm on the quilt, closed her eyes, and said with a smile on her face, "Okay, don't talk, I'm going to sleep." Tang Ning faced the wall and said, "I haven't eaten yet." Su Mei yawned and said, "Go to bed first. I'll have someone bring you some food later." Tang Ning thought for a while and said, "I'm not comfortable in this position. Please change my position so that I lie flat on my back." Sumei asked him to lie down on his back. Tang Ning moved his neck and said, "Stay away from me, your blowing will make my neck itchy." Sumei said angrily, "Why are you so busy?" Tang Ning looked at the roof and asked, "I slept enough last night, what should I do if I can't sleep now?" Tang Ning was really not sleepy, he was just hungry, but after Sumei tapped his acupuncture points, he couldn't move his body or do anything else, so he had to close his eyes and rest. There was no peace even when she closed her eyes. Sumei didn't sleep lying flat like him, but sleeping sideways, with one hand on his body and her head facing his neck. The air she breathed out blew him. "My neck feels itchy, and my heart feels itchy." Tang Ning planned to recall a horror movie to calm down. He still had a lot of horror movies in his head. He rarely watched foreign movies before, and he had never watched domestic horror movies. He was more interested in Hong Kong movies from the 1980s and 1990s. He always felt that Sumei had the style of a Hong Kong star in the 1980s and 1990s. A movie lasts about an hour and a half, less than an hour. After watching it, Sumei hadn't woken up yet. When Tang Ning was about to take a break herself, there was sudden movement around her. He felt that Sumei seemed to be awake, and he could clearly feel that she was opening her eyes and looking at him. His face was suddenly pulled. The pulling was not enough. Sumei put her palms on his face and kneaded it. Tang Ning opened her eyes and asked, "Have you had enough fun?" Sumei immediately retracted her hand, got up from the bed, and helped him open his acupuncture points. Tang Ning rubbed her belly and said, "You only focus on sleeping, and I'm starving to death." "Xiao Tao, go ask someone to bring some food over," Sumei called out the door, and the little maid answered immediately. After so long, Xiao Ju and the others should have gone back long ago. Tang Ning sighed in her heart, her whole life of innocence was ruined today. After a full sleep, Sumei was obviously in much better spirits and her appetite seemed to be good. Tang Ning ate 2 bowls, and she also ate 2 bowls. 4 dishes and 1 soup were eaten by the 2 of them. Tang Ning finished her meal and said, "I'm leaving. See you next time." Sumei looked at him and asked, "When is the next time?" Tang Ning thought for a while and said, "Let's see again." "What do you think of it again?" Tang Ning felt that to Sumei, he was just a soothing incense. She didn't know whether her illness was psychological or physical, but no matter which one it was, he couldn't do nothing every day but sleep with her. Sumei watched his back disappear with some reluctance. Xiao Tao stood beside her, thought for a moment, and said, "Miss, why don't we capture him and let him sleep with you every day?" Sumei rolled her eyes and said, "I can also marry him, so that he can sleep with me every day. Even if the lady really marries him, he can't sleep with her every day." Xiao Tao thought for a moment and said, "He has 2 wives at home, and it takes at least 3 days for the lady to have her turn." Sumei hit her on the head and said, "Children, stop talking nonsense and go play with your takraw ball." Tang Grenzai opened a new store. In order to attract and retain customers, 1 volume of The Legend of White Snake was released every day. This is also because Tang Ning made preparations early before the branch opened. The full text of The Legend of White Snake had been engraving, printed and bound before the store opened, so it didn't take much effort. As the plot gets better and better, new volumes every day have become the most anticipated thing for countless people in the capital. Every morning, when the sky gets slightly brighter, there will be a long queue of people at the entrance of Tang Grenzai. That old bald donkey Fa Hai is really abominable. Lai Feng Pagoda collapsed and the West Lake dried up. How is this possible? This old bald donkey clearly doesn't want to let her out. Their son must be admitted to the top exam and rescue her from Lai Feng Pagoda. Most of the customers queuing up at the entrance of Tang Grenzai were girls of 15 or 16 years old. They were dressed in bright clothes and were obviously dressed as maids. There were also many servants in green clothes among them, chatting in low voices while waiting in line. One of the young people said mysteriously, "Do you think the story of the legend of White Snake sounds familiar?" The girl queuing up behind him asked in confusion, "Why are you so familiar?" The young man looked around and asked, "This Fahe bald donkey beats the mandarin ducks with a stick and imprisoned Bai Sohan in Lifeng Pagoda for 18 years. He has to wait until Bai Sohan's son is the top scorer in high school before he can be released. Don't you think so? Don't you think this story is familiar?" Listening to what you said, I also feel that this story is somewhat familiar. It seems like I've heard it somewhere. I also have this feeling. While everyone around was confused and talking, one person suddenly had a look of surprise on his face and blurted out, "I know." Everyone's eyes turned to him. The man lowered his voice and whispered, "The number one scholar in the legend of White Snake is not the number one scholar in the dynasty. Bai Sohan was imprisoned in the tower by Fahe bald donkey for 18 years. That young lady from the Tang family was also imprisoned at home by the Tang family for 18 years. 18 years later, Su Shilin won the top prize in high school and won the top prize in the new subject. Isn't he also 18 years old this year? I understand, the legend of White Snake is actually about the Tang family. It's a pity that Su Shilin was able to reunite with his family as he was the top pick in high school, but the Tang family's background is so profound that even the top pick can't do anything. This Tang family is so abominable, even more abominable than Fahai, the old bald donkey. Keep your voice down. If someone from the Tang family hears it, I won't spare you." In the Tang family, Tang Chi, who had just returned home, sneezed inexplicably, and a servant ran in quickly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 244. There were several volumes of books on the table in front of Tang Chi. He glanced at the housekeeper and asked, "What is this?" The housekeeper said with a nervous look, "My lord, this is the most popular vernacular novel in recent times, called The Legend of the White Snake." Tang Chi knew that the housekeeper would not disturb him just because of a vernacular novel, and waited for his explanation. The housekeeper looked up at him, and said in an even more nervous tone, The content of this novel is suspected of alluding to the Tang family." Another allusion. Tang Chi frowned when he heard this. This year, the poor scholars who wrote vernacular novels in the capital have become inexplicably bolder. First, there was Tang Zhao in The Romance of the West Chamber, who alluded to Tang Zhao, causing the people of the capital to accumulate a lot of resentment against the Tang family. Even His Majesty asked him to restrain his son more on weekdays, which clearly expressed his dissatisfaction with the Tang family. I wonder what kind of illusion The Legend of the White Snake is. Although these things did not cause substantial damage to the Tang family, it was easy to become infamous, but it would take years or even decades to build up a good reputation again. Since this year, too many things have happened to the Tang family, all of which have had an adverse impact on the family. He did not have time to look at the contents of the novel in detail. He frowned and asked, "What is the allusion here?" The housekeeper said cautiously, "It alludes to the affairs of the second young lady. The Tang family now has only one eldest young lady." What the housekeeper said could not be Tang Shui. Thinking of a possibility, Tang Chi's face sank. He picked up a volume of The Legend of the White Snake and read it carefully. Half an hour later, he had finished reading all the contents. He threw the scroll in his hand down, slapped it on the table, and said angrily, "What a big dog's guts." Although The Legend of the White Snake is not like The Romance of the West Chamber and The Peony Pavilion, which satirize the Tang family by name, the satires throughout the book are more obvious than naming names. The bald Fahe who broke up the couple in the book is a metaphor for the Tang family. Isn't Bai Sohan, who was trapped under the Lifeng Pagoda, his second sister? And who is Su Shilin, the Wenkuxing who is about to pass the imperial examination. Do you need to think about it? The scholars picked up their pens to criticize the heart. First there was Li Qing who hid his head and tail, and now there is Tang Ningning who is unknown. It is possible that these two people are the same person, and the person behind the scenes is naturally self-evident. What a calculation! Tang Qi's face became more gloomy, and he murmured. His purpose is to make the Tang family condemned by the people. A big family like the Tang family in Beijing attaches great importance to reputation. Once they lose their reputation, although they can still rely on power to gain a stable foothold in Beijing, it will not last long. If the Tang family handles this matter improperly, they will be pushed to the forefront again. Although he did not confront the Tang family head-on, this move was more effective than any other means. The Tang family could not allow the public to be pushed by him. Now the printing of books in the capital is under the control of King Kong. It is unlikely to be solved through the court, but even if the court cannot be used, the Tang family will not let this matter continue to develop. Tang Qi thought for a moment and whispered, "Go and find Zhao Er." In another courtyard of the Tang family, Tang Shui strode in, crossed the courtyard, stepped into the room, put a scroll on the table, and said, "Auntie, this is the latest volume that was released this morning. I bought it with great difficulty." She sat opposite the elegant woman, holding her chin with one hand, and said, "Who is this Tang Ningning? The book she wrote is so good. I don't know what the ending is. If the ending is not good, I will find her and let her change it to a good ending." You have to change your temper." The elegant woman looked at her and said helplessly, "You will soon reach the age of peaches and plums. If you are so mean, go, no one in the capital dares to marry you. I still have a year to turn 20. Tang Shui curled his lips and said indifferently, "At worst, I will accompany my aunt for the rest of my life and not marry." The beautiful woman looked at her and asked with a smile, "If you don't marry, will your parents agree? If they don't agree, then don't agree. Anyway, I don't need my father to give me pocket money now." Tang Shui looked out the window and said, "When my pocket money is gone, I will ask my cousin for it. He is not short of money. As a younger brother, it is my duty to respect my sister." The two talked in the room. The atmosphere in the room was much more relaxed and pleasant than any period in the past 10 years. At the same time, Tang Zhao walked out of the Tang family with several servants. Facing the Tang family, several beggars stood up at a street corner. "Fang Xiaoyu will live in the capital in the future. Many princes and nobles of her age will be sent to the palace school to study with the royal children." A few days ago, Fang Hong asked her to study in the palace school. These days, she came here with Zhao Yuan. Fang Xiaoyu and Zhao Yuan sat in the pavilion to do the homework left by the palace school teacher, and Tang Ning taught Xiao Xiao to write. He wrote a word on the paper and asked, "Xiao Xiao, do you know how to pronounce this word?" "This is Xiao." Xiao Xiao whispered, picked up the pen, wrote another word on the paper, and said, "This is Tang." Tang Ning was stunned, looked at her, and said in surprise, "Xiao Xiao can read, who taught you?" Xiao Xiao put down the pen and whispered, "It was Mammy who taught me." "Mammy?" Tang Ning looked at her and asked, "Where is Mammy now?" Xiao Xiao lowered his head and said, "One day, Grandma went out to buy steamed buns. I went to look for her and was taken away. I haven't seen Grandma since then." Tang Ning knew that the little girl's parents and brother had passed away unexpectedly a long time ago. In order to prevent her from thinking about more sad things, he didn't ask any more questions. Today was the first time he heard her talk about the past. He did not continue the topic and asked, "What words can Xiao Xiao know how to write?" Xiao Xiao thought for a while and said, "Mommy taught me a lot." Tang Ning taught Xiao Xiao literacy not just on a whim, or because he wanted to train her to be as talented as Xiao Yi. He just felt that only by reading and literacy can we see a broader world and be able to understand things and be polite. He doesn't want to be taught by the old beggar to become a little witch who only knows how to take action when trouble comes. He already knew a big witch and didn't want another little witch around him. Tang Ning took a book and found that Xiao Xiao really knew a lot of words. Except for a few unfamiliar words, she actually knew them all. Tang Ning casually tested Prince Run and found that even Prince Run was not as literate as she was. She wondered if all princes were like this. Emperor Chen had forced him to have some kind of apprentice. Just as Tang Ning taught Xiao Xiao the few words she didn't know, a waiter ran in from outside in a panic and said, "Sir, it's bad, our branch was smashed." Tang Ning stood up calmly and said, "Go and have a look." When he walked out of the house, he saw Tang Yao Yao coming out of the house aggressively. He took 2 steps forward, grabbed her arm, and said, "What are you in a hurry for?" Tang Yao Yao's face was filled with anger and she said, "The branch shop has been smashed. Why do you think I'm so anxious? Don't let me know who did this. Don't waste the whole day, go take a look first." Tang Ning patted her shoulder and walked slowly towards the branch store. Tang Yao Yao felt angry and anxious, grabbed his arm, and said angrily, "Waiting for a while, by the time you walk over, the day lily will be cold." Tang Ning was dragged to the place by her. It was almost closing time and there were not many people on the street. Several clerks stood at the door of the shop with bruises, carrying out the damaged tables, chairs, and benches. Tang Yao Yao walked over and frowned, "What's going on? Who did it?" Shopkeeper Su limped out and said, "I don't know who they are. They are all strangers. They came in, smashed them and ran away. They also said that if we sell the Legend of White Snake again, they will be burned down our store." "That's unreasonable." Tang Yao Yao looked angry, "It must be Wanjinlu or another bookstore that did it. I'll go find them." Tang Ning held her wrist again and said, "Why are you so anxious? If it wasn't them who did it, wouldn't it mean that you have wronged a good person?" As soon as he finished speaking, several figures walked in from outside the door. Xiaoju walked at the front and asked, "What's going on?" After getting the news, Lu Jun and others rushed over and saw the mess on the ground. They became furious and shouted, "Who did it? Check." Lu Jun turned his head, looked at a servant, and said, "In an hour, find out who did it. If you dare to smash my shop, see if I don't skin him." Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 245. Lu Jun was very angry, not only him, but Huang Yulong and Mu Yu were also very angry. They are the dudes who usually bully others. Although they don't often do this kind of thing, if someone comes and smashes the store, if the news gets out, they don't have to hang out in this circle. This is no longer a question of money, but a question of dignity. If you don't allow books to be sold, will you set the store on fire if you continue to sell them? After Lu Jun calmed down and listened to Manager Su's words, he smiled instead of angry. Who gave them the courage? No one in the capital dares to be so crazy. Gu Bai thought for a while and asked, "Could it be another bookstore?" Lu Jun patted the table and said, "If it were another bookshop, I wouldn't be able to let them open it." Gu Bai didn't say anything else, he knew Lu Jun had such ability. Although the Lu family is different from the past, their heritage remains. If Lu Jun takes the initiative to bully others, the Lu family may still have some trouble, but if they are the ones being bullied and he takes advantage of it, even if he pokes a hole in the sky, it doesn't matter. Tang Ning had calmed down Fairy Tang and was counting the losses in the shop. In fact, the damage was not big, that is, a few sets of tables and chairs were broken, and the guys got into conflicts with those people and suffered some injuries. He walked over, looked at Manager Su, and said, "Give each of the guys who were injured today 10 taels of silver as a decoction." Manager Su didn't say much. He hugged his fists and said, "I'd like to thank you for them, Master." "Thank you, sir." "Thank you, sir." Several waiters stepped forward to salute. with expressions of gratitude on their faces. 10 taels of silver was their wages for several months. The beating they received today was worth it. The servant Lu Jun sent out just now came in from the outside, looked at him, and said, "Master, the people who smashed the store have been found. They are a few well-known gangsters in the East District. They collect money to do things, and they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Who ordered it?" Lu Jun frowned and said, "I wonder who instigated it." Manager Zhang of Wanjuan Tower walked in from outside the door, looked at the mess in the hall, and said in surprise, "Manager Su, what's going on?" Manager Su looked at him, frowned and said, "Mr. Zhang, did you ask someone to do this?" Hearing this, Lu Jun suddenly grabbed Manager Zhang's collar and said angrily, "Did you do it?" "No, it's not." Manager Zhang said hurriedly, "How dare we do such a thing? If you used the legend of White Snake to insinuate the Tang family, you should have thought that this would happen." "Tang family? Which Tang family?" Lu Jun looked at him and understood after a moment, "You are talking about the Minister of Rights." "Why, the Minister of Rights can do whatever he wants and smash other people's shops. This world is the Zhao family's world, is not the Tang family's world." He looked at Mu Yu and Huang Yulong and said, "Let's go find Tang Ersi, he must have done this." After that, he strode out. Tang Ning looked at Xiaoju and asked, "Can they do it?" "Don't worry." Xiaoju nodded and said, "As long as they are reasonable, even the emperor can't do anything to them." Tang Ning sighed a little. A dandy with a family as his backing was really enviable, unlike people from a small family like them who had to swallow their anger when being bullied. A restaurant somewhere in the capital. In a private room on the second floor, several figures were seated. Sitting in the first place is Tang Zhao, the second son of the Tang family. Next to him is Lu Li, the son of the Minister of Rights. Opposite him is Su Xiao, the son of Marquis Wuan, who was beaten in the street a few days ago and the case made a lot of noise. Tang Zhao took a sip of wine, looked at a young man opposite, and asked, "Is Brother Su's leg feeling better?" Su Xiao looked at him and said, "Brother Tang, please worry about me. You are feeling much better now. Is Brother Tang's injury okay?" Tang Zhao's face looked a little unnatural. After a moment, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "It's been fine for a long time." "It's okay." Su Xiao met his eyes and drank the wine in the glass. Tang Zhao looked at him and asked, "Brother Su, isn't he planning to avenge his broken leg?" "I would like to take revenge, but unfortunately I can't find an enemy." Su Xiao shook his head and said, "Brother Tang has been so humiliated. If I don't take revenge, I'm afraid he won't feel comfortable, right?" After downing 2 glasses of wine, Tang Zhao lost his patience and said through gritted teeth, "Of course I have to take my revenge. He won't be proud for long." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the box was kicked open from the outside. Lu Jun strode in from the outside, looked at Tang Zhao, and asked loudly, "Did you have Tang Renzai smashed?" Tang Zhao looked at him and frowned. "Lu Jun, what do you mean? What does Tang Renzai have to do with you?" "Sure enough, it was you who smashed it." Lu Jun's face showed an angry look. "You think that with the support of the Tang family, you can do whatever you want. You dare to smash my shop, so beat him up." Tang Zhao's bodyguard had long been stopped by Lu Jun and others' bodyguards. Before Tang Zhao could react, Lu Jun had already stepped forward and punched him in the face. Lu Li, who was sitting aside, was kicked to the ground by Huang Yulong before he could react. Su Xiao picked up his crutch, pointed at Mu Yu, and said in shock, "What are you going to do? What Tang Zhao did has nothing to do with me relation. Don't come over here, my legs haven't healed yet. My legs haven't healed yet, so I can just slap them in the face." In the lobby of the restaurant, the shopkeeper helplessly looked at the chaos on the second floor, kicked a waiter who was watching the fun, and said angrily, "Why are you still standing there? Report it to the official." The next time Tang Ning saw Lu Jun and his two companions, it was in the jail of the county government. Although they were not as wounded as Tang Zhao and Lu Li, they also had many bruises on their faces. The crime of gang fighting could be serious or minor, but the person being beaten was the son of Dong Tisharan, the son of Wu Enho, and the son of the Minister of Rights. The beaters were all sons of nobles in Beijing, so it was not easy to judge them. They could only be detained here temporarily. Tang Ning felt that his father-in-law must be very worried now, because the background of any one of these 6 people was not something he, a 5th-rank county magistrate, could afford to offend. Tang Ning sighed, looked at Lu Jun and said, "You are still too impulsive." Lu Jun didn't care at all, but looked at him with a smile and said, "Brother Tang, you are no longer a commoner now. You must understand one thing. Under the feet of the emperor in the capital, as long as you are right, even if you poke a hole in the sky, it is not a big deal." Lu Jun said it lightly. He was alone and had no family power. How could he compare with these playboys? When Tang Ning came out of the prison, he saw his father-in-law pacing in the front hall of the county government. The county magistrate of Jing County is different from the local county magistrate. The local county magistrate is the master of a county. He has the final say in the county and can make decisions on almost anything. But the county magistrate of Jing County is different. Today, the one who is fighting may be the eldest grandson of a duke, and tomorrow, the one who molested women may be the youngest son of the Minister of War. At that time, he, the county magistrate, will be caught in the middle and neither of them is a human being. It was really difficult for him to judge this case. Tang Ning winked at Xiaoju, and Xiaoju walked over and said with a smile, "Uncle Zhong, you have just arrived in the capital and are not familiar with the rules here. The county government can handle the frictions and disputes between the people on weekdays, but when encountering such things, all the files and so on must be handed over to the Ministry of Justice or the Jingzhou Prefecture. They know what to do with such things." Zhong Mingli raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. Whether it was the Ministry of Justice or the Jingzhou Prefecture, it was much more convenient for them to handle such things than him. Tang family, the woman who had just received the news from the Ministry of Justice strode into the hall and anxiously asked, "Master, how could Zhao be arrested by the Ministry of Justice?" Tang Chi held a letter in his hand, frowned, and murmured, "How did the Lu family, Huang family, and Mu family get involved?" The woman shook his arm and said, "Master, if you have something to do, you can't send servants or housekeepers to do it. Now Zhao has been arrested, you should think of a solution." Tang Chi put down the letter and said, "A small bookstore dares to secretly criticize my Tang family. Even if Zhao has extreme behavior, it is normal. It's just a fight between a few juniors. The Ministry of Justice, the ministry will not make a fuss about it. But Zhao is still in the Ministry of Justice." Tang Chi waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about this anymore. I'll let my third brother go there." In Tang Grenzai, Xiaoju looked at Tang Ning and said regretfully, "If the Tang family had sent a housekeeper or servant, this matter would have been a big deal, but Tang Ersha did this and it would be easy to distance himself from the Tang family. The Ministry of Justice should not punish him much, at most he would have to pay some silver, but after the release of The Legend of the White Snake, the reputation that the Tang family had managed to restore a few days ago is gone." Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 246. The plot of The Legend of White Snake is at its exciting moment. Whether Su Shilin can win the first prize, whether Bai Suhen can come out of Lifeng Pagoda, and whether Su Xian and his family can be reunited will be revealed in today's volume. As soon as it got dark, there were many people waiting in line at the entrance of Tang Grenzai. But today, they did not wait for Tang Grenzai to open for sale, but only waited for the news that Tang Grenzai would be closed for one day. "We came here before dawn, what does this mean? Closed immediately without giving any advance notice. Yeah, isn't this delaying things?" Everyone was waiting at the entrance of Tangrenzai. After learning that it was closed today, they sounded quite complaining and indignant. An insider felt sorry for Tangrenzai and explained, "This can't be blamed on Tangrenzai. Just yesterday, a group of thugs smashed everything in their store to pieces. How can they still be open today? What, this happened? Who has such courage under the emperor's feet? Did Tangrenzai offend someone?" Everyone was shocked when they heard this. "Do you need to say who you offended?" someone whispered. "You don't know whose family the legend of White Snake is alluding to. How could they allow Tangrenzai to continue opening up like this?" After someone came to their senses, they said angrily, "That family has done something scandalous and they don't allow others to talk about it. Originally, it's nothing. If they do this, doesn't it mean that there is no silver in this place, and they are trying to hide it? Who makes my family so powerful? I can't afford to offend him, I can't afford to offend him." The customers at the entrance of Tangrenzai were very angry. Inside the store, a waiter looked at Manager Su and asked curiously, "Hasn't the legend of White Snake been all printed? Why are we closing today?" Manager Su glanced at him and asked, "Do you know why you are still just a buddy?" The guy looked at him doubtfully. "Why?" "Because you talk too much." Tang Ning woke up after a long sleep and heard Xiao Ju say that Lu Jun and Tang Zhao had been released by the Ministry of Punishment last night. There are many cases where the young masters of the capital are jealous of women and get into fights over disagreements about seats in the box. Both the criminal department and the Jingzhou Mansion Yamen have experience in handling this matter. Generally speaking, as long as no one is killed or injured, these two Yamen will only give verbal education, and then the family members of these dandies will take them back and discipline them. Yesterday's fight was caused by Lu Jun and the others, but there was a reason. Even if Tang Zhao did not admit that he was responsible for what happened to Tang Renzai, both the punishment department Yamen and the people of the capital knew it very well. However, Tang Zhao would not do such a thing personally. Even if he found the person who smashed the shop, he would not be able to identify him. Without any evidence, this matter passed so lightly. One of Lu Jun's eyes was still black, and he said angrily, "This time, Tang Er is lucky. If there is a next time, I will definitely skin him." Xiao Ju looked at him and asked, "Didn't your father beat you this time?" "Why did he beat me this time?" Lu Jun curled his lips and said, "I wasn't the one who caused trouble first. It was Tang Er who made people smash up our store first." This is a slap in the Lu family's face. Although the Lu family it's not as good as the Tang family, but it's not that easy to bully. Lu Jun looked at Tang Ning and said, "Brother Tang, don't be a coward. As the legend of White Snake continues to be published, I want to see if the Tang family still has this face. If they still dare to use dirty tricks, the Lu family will definitely not sit idly by." The first time Tang Zhao sent people to destroy the store, he didn't know that Tang Renzai, Lu Jun, and others were also involved. Now he knows that if he continues to make things difficult, he will not give face to the Lu family, the Huang family, the Mu family, and the Xiao family. Although the Gu family is not as prosperous as the Tang family, if they are tied into a ball and trampled with their feet, their face will be lost. A servant walked in from outside and said respectfully, "Sir, there is someone visiting outside, saying he is the steward of Prince Kang's mansion." Several of the servants in the family were elite disciples selected by Lu Lao Er from the gang. They were clever in handling matters. Tang Ning nodded and said, "Let him come in." After a while, a middle-aged man was brought in by him. The steward of Prince Kang's mansion looked at them, cupped his hands, and said, "I have met Mr. Tang, Captain Xiao, Mr. Lu." Tang Ning looked at him and smiled, "His Royal Highness Prince Kang is so polite." He sent a butler to deliver gifts again. The middle-aged butler showed embarrassment on his face and said, "Master Tang, you have misunderstood. Your Highness is not here to give gifts this time." Without waiting for Tang Ning to answer, The butler laughed dryly and said, His Royal Highness Prince Kong has already heard about yesterday's incident. He specially asked this villain to come over and inform Mr. Tang that your highness is willing to help. If Mr. Tang wants to seize the matter, your highness can take action, but the matter is not serious, the effect may be limited, and it will not affect the foundation of the Tang family. Tang Ning smiled and said, I thank His Highness Prince Kong for me. However, the Ministry of Punishment has already sentenced this matter. If I bother His Highness any more, it will offend His Highness. It is really unwise. I know, the butler smiled and said, I will go back and report to His Highness right now. When only Tang Ning and Xiaoju were left in the courtyard, he looked at Tang Ning and said, Do you want to use the pressure of public opinion to force the Tang family to submit? Without waiting for Tang Ning to answer, he shook his head and said, The Tang family has been ruined by you so many times. It has already gained a bad reputation in the capital. Even if you wrote the legend of the white snake and the legend of the green snake, it would only be for the Tang family. The reputation will be damaged. If they are determined to be shameless, there is nothing you can do, unless the Tang family does something outrageous again and arouses public anger. Tang Ning shook her head and said, We have no control over what the Tang family does. Prince Kang's mansion. After listening to the butler's report, King Kong showed a smile on his face. As Duan Wang's mortal enemy, he certainly hopes that the Tang family will be as embarrassed as possible, but to him, what happened yesterday is really a trivial matter, not worth taking action. If it is forcibly expanded, the gain will outweigh the loss. But he had to show enough concern for the number one scholar. Since he entered the capital, he had repeatedly gained the upper hand in the battles with Prince Duan, especially the methods he adopted against the Tang family, which made him very satisfied. Now that he is able to assess the situation and stop when it is appropriate, it shows that he is a smart man who knows how to advance and retreat, and will be of great use in the future. King Kong looked into the distance and sighed. If the Tang family did a few more stupid things, then everything would go smoothly. Unfortunately, Tang Qi and Tang Huai are both old foxes who do things flawlessly. It is better to expect them to make mistakes again. Pie in the sky. Tang family. Tang Qi sat by the bed, looked at Tang Zhao who was lying on the bed, and said, You don't have to take action on this matter anymore. I didn't expect that he actually attracted so many people. If there is any movement again, there will definitely be cause their dissatisfaction. Although the Xiao family, Gu family, Lu family, and other families are not as good as the Tang family, none of them can be bullied by the Tang family at will. If they are tied together, even the Tang family will have to avoid the edge temporarily. Now the Imperial College has been intervened by King Kong, who firmly controls the publication and printing of books, and cannot take action from the official side. Behind Tang Renzai, there are so many children from wealthy families, and their influence can affect the whole body. Once the Tang family makes any move, they will immediately become the target of public criticism and will be difficult to resist. The Tang family is determined to suffer this secret loss. Tang Qi sighed, How could the second sister have a pure heart and give birth to such a son who is as cunning as a fox? Making calculations and competing with others is not what Tang Ning likes to do. Apart from his love for leather, his hobbies in recent times are nothing more than practicing martial arts and cooking food. Thinking about those intrigues and fighting with those old foxes all day long was very troublesome, and he felt that he was almost turning into a little fox. He dreamed yesterday that he had turned into a white fox. Not only that, he also met a female fox. The female fox actually knew martial arts and threatened him all day long to make him sleep with her. Later, when the female fox was no longer content with letting him sleep with her, but instead asked him to have babies with her, Tang Ning finally woke up. After opening my eyes, I realized that I wasn't woken up by a shock, but was shaken awake by Tang Yao Yao. Tang Yao Yao looked sullen and said, Tang Grenzai was burned down last night, and you're still sleeping. Tang Ning got up from the bed, shocked, and asked, "What did you say?" Tang Yao Yao looked at him and said, "Someone set a fire in Tang Grenzai last night." Such a thing could happen. Tang Ning clutched her chest and said sadly, "Who did this? It's too much." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 247. Tang Ning covered his chest with a look of pain on his face. Tang Yao Yao looked him up and down, and suddenly said, "Why is your expression so fake?" Tang Ning was stunned and asked, "Fake?" Tang Yao Yao nodded and confirmed, "Fake." Don't pay attention to these details. Tang Ning lay back on the bed and said, "Go out first." "Why? I'm not wearing pants." Shameless. Tang Grenzai is still closed today. There is no need to explain this time. The people can know the reason just by standing on the street and taking a look. The two doors of Tang Grenzai have been burned down, leaving only the wreckage. Although the plaque is intact, it is smoked black and has been removed. Neighbors are still talking about the fire last night, and everyone is still scared. There are shops on both sides of Tang Grenzai. On the left is a cloth shop and on the right is a grain store. If the Tang Grenzai clerk had not discovered it early last night, I'm afraid these two shops would also suffer from the disaster. This place is in a busy city with densely packed houses. Once the fire spreads, the consequences will be disastrous. Someone said indignantly, "What's wrong with the guys at Tang Grenzai? Don't they know where this place is? Don't they know to be careful?" "What's the use of being careful?" Another person shook his head and said, "No matter how careful you are, you can't do anything if you meet someone with ulterior motives." "You said someone deliberately set the fire." "I didn't say that. I just heard that when Tang Grenzai was smashed 2 days ago, that person said that if they didn't obey, the next step would not be as simple as smashing the store, but burning the entire shop. I wonder if it has anything to do with the arson last night." It actually happened. So, the arsonist was the Tang family. I didn't say anything and left. The people gathered around Tang Grenzai to discuss, and the neighbors were panicked. Customers who came to buy books came in high spirits and left in disappointment. Looking at the dilapidated store, they didn't know when it would reopen for business. This damn Tang family, can people still read books properly? Behind the crowd, a white-haired old man took out a small notebook from his sleeve, and while recording, he said angrily, "Regardless of the consequences, setting fire in the downtown area, under the feet of the emperor, it is simply lawless, lawless." When Tang Ning and Tang Yao Yao walked into Tang Renzai, Manager Su was sitting inside sighing. Tang Ning walked over and asked, "How much damage?" "Young master and miss are here." Manager Su stood up and bowed, saying, "The damage is not big. Fortunately, the guys found it early and put out the fire quickly. Only the door was burned. But the arsonist is too bad. This is really going to burn down our store. A group of sons have no sons. Hey." Tang Ning waved his hand and said, "Although they are the ones who set the fire, we should also be more elegant. Don't say dirty words or curse." Manager Su could only nod helplessly. Tang Ning looked at him and asked, "Have you reported it to the police?" Manager Su nodded and said, "The messenger from the Jingzhou government came to check this morning and said that they would find the arsonist as soon as possible." As soon as possible, Lu Jun, who came after hearing the news, was furious. "If it wasn't done by Tang Ersha, I would write my name Lu backwards. The Tang family really thinks that the capital is their world. This time I will make the Tang family lose a layer of skin." Tang Ning walked over and comforted him, "Brother Lu, don't be so angry first, maybe the murderer is someone else." "Impossible." Lu Jun slapped his hand on the table and said, "This is the Tang family warning us. Brother Tang, Don't worry about this matter. This matter is no longer something you can interfere with. He turned around and said, Old Huang, Old Mu, do you really want to watch the Tang family poop and pee on our heads? Mu Yu said with a gloomy face, I'll go back and tell my father first. Huang Yulong also nodded and said, I'll go back first. After the three of them left, Xiaoju came in from outside and shook his head and said, they can only be regarded as a small fight, icing on the cake. Don't forget to tell His Royal Highness Prince Kong, he should have known it now. Tang Ning looked at the embarrassment at the gate of Tang Grenzai, sighed, and said with some heartache, this is a new shop that has just been renovated. I don't know how much silver it will cost to renovate it again. Xiaoju looked around and said, I think there should be at least 100,000 taels, right? Kongwang Mansion. Kongwang, who had just got up and was washing up, sprayed out a mouthful of mouthwash after hearing what the housekeeper said. What did you say? Tang Grenzai was burned down yesterday? Who did it? The housekeeper immediately said, Your Highness, the arsonist has not been found yet, and the Jingzhou government office is already investigating with all its strength. Kongwang wiped his mouth and said happily, well burned, well burned. Send someone, no, go and comfort Lord Tang in person, and tell him that I will definitely help him get justice. Kongwang straightened his clothes and said, get ready, I'm going to visit the chief censor. Tang Grenzai was set on fire, and it took less than a morning for the news to spread throughout the capital. Even if the Jingzhou government office was burned down, the news would not spread so quickly. However, the name Tang Grenzai attracts the attention of thousands of people in the capital every day. For 2 days in a row, they cannot buy a new volume of The Legend of White Snake. If those maids and servants in the major mansions don't have a justifiable reason, there is no way to interact with his master. In a deep house somewhere in the capital, a gorgeously dressed young lady looked at her maid and asked, What, you didn't buy it again? The maid lowered her head and said, Miss, I got up early this morning, but when I went to Tang Grenzai, I found that Tang Grenzai had been burned down, and they had no books to sell. The daughter-in-law frowned and said, the day before yesterday, you said it was smashed, and today you said it was burned. You are not lying to me, are you? I don't dare, the maid immediately said, they were really burned. You can find out if you just ask around. I heard that Tang Grenzai offended someone, and that person refused to let them go. I don't know when they will be able to do it, sell books again. Forget it. The young lady waved her hand and walked into a hall. The middle-aged man sitting at the table looked at her and said, my daughter's family, don't always stay in the room and read those words, Ben, learn more about female celebrities. If you are not good at these things, you will be laughed at by others when you get married in 2 years. The young lady sat down at the table and said, Dad, you are talking about me again. I didn't watch it today. The middle-aged man looked at her and asked casually, why, that movie about White Snake that you have been watching these days is finished. It's not finished, the young lady said angrily, it was almost finished, but the bookstore offended someone. The day before yesterday, the store was smashed. Even the shop was burned down last night. I don't know when it will be ready. Finished. Is this happening? The middle-aged man, who is the censor, looked at her and said, tell me in detail, what is going on? At the same time, in other high-rise residences in the capital, a woman punished a servant who failed to do things well, gritted her teeth and said, what the hell is this Tang family doing? First they banned the West Chamber and Peony, and now they don't even let people watch White Snake. It's really too much, I hate it. After hearing the maid's reasons, a woman shook her head and said, I've offended the Tang family. I'm afraid this little bookstore will have no good fruits to eat. I hope this White Snake will not die young. In a certain manner, several women gathered together and said angrily, damn the Tang family, they don't even let people read their books, why doesn't your majesty care about them? In a short period of time, The capital was full of resentment. Tang Mansion. After Tang Zhao got up, some parts of his body were still aching. He cursed Lu Jun and others 100 times in his heart, and then walked to a certain hall to prepare for breakfast. As soon as he stepped into the hall, several eyes looked over at him. His footsteps paused, and he couldn't help but be surprised, and asked, "What do you think I'm doing?" Fortunate young gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 248. Tang Zhao walked into the hall and saw the whole family, including his father, uncle, and uncle, all looking at him. Even though Tang Zhao had done nothing wrong, he felt guilty at this moment. Tang Hui glanced at him, then moved his eyes back and said, "Sit down and eat." Tang Zhao sat down anxiously. Tang Qi looked at him, then looked at Tang Hui, and said, "Zhao has been recuperating at home these 2 days and has not had contact with outsiders. It can't be him." Tang Zhao was stunned and asked, What's wrong with me?" Tang Qi said calmly, "Tang Renzai was burned down last night." "What, Tang Renzai was burned down?" Tang Zhao was overjoyed when he heard this and said, "The burning was good, the burning was good, I don't know which hero did it, it's so satisfying." Tang Qi looked at him and asked, "Who do you think did it?" "How did I know that Lu Jun and the others have offended many people, like Lu Li, Su Xiao, and..." As he was talking, he was suddenly startled and asked, "Don't you suspect that I was the one who let them down? Did someone do it?" "We don't doubt it, but some people do." Tang Qi looked out the door and murmured, "What a good plan. This move is wonderful, but I don't know whether it is King Kong who is playing the chess, or someone else." On the day Tang Renzai was burned down, repair work was immediately carried out and the readers were assured that Tang Renzai would be reopened within 3 days. As an apology, in 3 days' time, in addition to releasing the remaining volumes at the same time, another new work by Tang Ningning will also start the first round of pre-sale. It can be seen from the introduction of the book at the door that this is another mysterious world that is more grand than the background. What distinguishes Tang Ningning from Li Qing is that she can not only write lingering and pathos love stories, but also extremely imagination can create an illusory world with a grand background out of thin air, suitable for both men and women of all ages. Every day, many young talents walk into Tang Renzai. In addition to buying books, they also want to inquire about Tang Ningning's identity. However, Tang Renzai, from the manager to the clerk, has no idea about it. I don't know how many people return disappointed. Zhao Yuan doesn't like it very much, but likes it very much. Young people always like passionate stories. Tang Ning's version is different from the previous animated version and the CCTV version. Instead, it takes into account people's cognition and outlook on this era and mixes the multiple versions. Zhao Yuan read one place and couldn't help but ask, "Sir, who is the Monkey King, the Monkey King?" "That's another story. I'll tell you later when I have time. It is about the dispute between Buddhism and Taoism. Writing it may cause trouble. Tang Ning has no plans to do so yet. Although King Kong is in charge of publishing, there are some things that King Kong cannot control. For example, Tang Ning previously wanted to write about Yang Jiandoshan saving his mother, but in this way, it would not only insinuate the Tang family, but also the royal family. If something happened, even King Kong could not protect him, so he cancelled it. From the moment he decided to write, he had made several plans at almost every step, so naturally he would not make such a stupid mistake at a critical moment. A small bookstore in the capital was burned down. It didn't seem like there was much splash, but there was an unknown amount of waves surging in the dark. Kong Kong has arranged many censors, and the Tang family has been riding on his head twice. The Lu family, Huang family, and others will not sit idly by. Tomorrow's morning meeting will definitely be very lively. Xiao Ju's information is much better than him. Brought some interesting information in the afternoon. You're still not ruthless enough. Xiao Ju patted him on the shoulder and said, If you grit your teeth again, burn down the Tangrenzai branch and the main store, and burn down a few more shops nearby. If you still, how many lives can be caused, not to mention the Tang family, even Prince Duan can't deal with this matter, the Tang family will have to shed their skin even if they don't die. There must be a bottom line in life. If he really did that, what would be the difference between him and the Tang family? He turned to look at Xiaoju and said doubtfully, I don't understand what you are talking about at all. As a top expert, the old beggar would be seen if he set off a small fire. Tang Ning would have to consider whether to let him teach Xiao Xiao again in the future. Xiaoju was still a little confused. There is no evidence that you set the fire, and there is no evidence that the Tang family set the fire. I really don't know what the meaning of you doing these things is. Is it just to ruin the reputation of the Tang family? Tang Ning looked at him and asked, Are you healed? Xiaoju shook his head, Not yet. Do you know why your illness is not cured yet? Are you hiding something secret? Because you talk too much. Tang Ning glanced at him, waved and said, You haven't recovered yet, why don't you go back and take medicine? Why are you wandering around here? An arson case with no loss of property and no casualties was not considered an important matter in this capital city where major events happen every day. But Tangrenzai is different. As long as Tangrenzai is not open for a day, countless people in the capital will be thinking about this matter. When pedestrians on the street pass by the entrance of Tangrenzai, they will secretly curse Dam Tangjia in their hearts. The people knew very well that the Tang family must be causing trouble behind this incident, but the Tang family had been gaining prestige in the capital for a long time, so they could only curse secretly in their hearts. What the common people don't know is that because of this incident in the court today, several imperial censors have jointly impeached him. Several nobles who have never participated in court affairs have also filed reports, pointing the finger at Tang Hui, the Minister of Rights. For this reason, King Duan and King Kong had a heated argument in the court, and they almost came to blows. The censors spoke fiercely. Murder and arson were serious crimes, not to mention that they were under the emperor's feet. Even if they did not cause much damage, they should be severely punished to set an example. OK, Emperor Chen rubbed his eyebrows, waved his hand with a headache, and said, This matter will be handed over to the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple for strict investigation, and we will withdraw from the court. In Shuxia Palace, Emperor Chen was lying on the couch. Concubine Shu rubbed his head for him and asked, Is there something important going on in the court that bothers your majesty? There are no big things, but there are just a lot of bad things. Chen Huan closed his eyes and murmured, I now understand how powerful this scholar's pen is. The Tang family has worked hard for many years to achieve what it is today. In just a few months, he has only written 2 books and ruined the Tang family's reputation. Concubine Shu smiled and said, I do know about this matter. However, I feel that this cannot be blamed on the number 1 scholar. No matter who was right or wrong about the matter 20 years ago, as a son of man, how can it's human nature to watch your mother suffer? It's common sense. Emperor Chen nodded, opened his eyes, and said, It's just that the number 1 scholar saved his mother, his uncle imprisoned her, and he split the mountain to save his mother. It's so heartbreaking. The general of the Tang family Tang Yu has been trapped at home for more than 10 years because she doesn't want the Tang family's reputation to be damaged. Now it's not a damage, it's simply a disrepute. Concubine Shu asked doubtfully, I know that the number 1 scholar saved my mother, but this uncle imprisoned my mother and cut the mountain to save her. Where did it come from? Emperor Chen smiled and said, This is a new work by Tang Renzai that has not yet been released for sale. If you are interested, I will ask him to send it to the palace. Concubine Shu nodded and said, Then your majesty, remember to ask him to send the last few volumes together. This champion is really serious. Why didn't he publish them all at once? Only 1 volume came out today. It makes people feel itchy. He didn't go to the Hanlin Academy early to take up a position, nor did he teach you to read. He spent all day writing books at home to insinuate others. Chen Huang sighed and said, "It's a pity that the Tang family has worked so hard to build a reputation for so many years. All their efforts have been in vain. Already." Concubine Shu looked at him and said, "It's a pity, Your Majesty. Why are you laughing?" Fortunate young gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 249. R.I. Smiling, Chen Huang covered his chest and said, "It's a pity that the Tang family has managed it for so many years. I am so heartbroken and regretful." He put his hands on his chest and still had a bright smile on his face. Concubine Shu continued to massage his head, but she didn't reveal it anymore. The Tang family has been operating in the capital for a long time. Not only does it have many members in the court, but it also controls the Ministry of Rites for many years and is in charge of the imperial examinations. It also has an unparalleled reputation among the people and officials. In recent days, the reputation of the Tang family has been damaged one after another, which is what His Majesty is happy to see. Emperor Chen took a nap in Shuxia Palace for a while, and then returned to the imperial study. After he sat down, he asked seemingly unintentionally, "Wei Jian, do you think it was Chen who set the fire, or the little fox?" Wei Jian said in surprise, "Don't they all say it's the Tang family? How can the Tang family be so stupid?" Chen Huang shook his head and said, "It's unlikely that it's Chen Er. He couldn't think of such a method. Even if he thought of it, he wouldn't just burn down the door. In this way, all of this is did that little fox plan it?" Wei Jian asked in confusion, why can't this old slave understand what His Majesty said? Does this matter have something to do with His Highness Prince Kong? Who is the little fox? The little fox first tied the boys from the Xiao family, the Lu family, and the Huang family to him. In this way, if the Tang family makes trouble, they have to weigh it carefully. The Lu family and the Huang family are not willing to fight with the Tang family over a trivial matter. The family is at odds with each other, but they will not allow him to ride on their heads again and again. Chen Huang twisted the short beard on his chin and continued, "What's more important is that he knows that Chen Er will definitely not let go of this opportunity and will pursue it to the end. When the time comes, no matter whether it was done by the Tang family or not, the Tang family can't get rid of the suspicion, but I want to see what other methods he can use next. It's time for the Tang family to live in peace for some time." "What are you going to do next?" Xiao Ju leaned on the pillar in the pavilion and asked. "The Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple can't find evidence that the Tang family set fire. Mere speculation cannot convict them. At most, they can only discuss them. That's all, disgusting and disgusting." Tang Ning didn't speak, so he just said to himself, "However, this matter is enough for the Tang family to drink a pot of wine. Many censors in the court are biting them and won't let go. They are just waiting to find their flaws without giving any clues. Lu Jun and Mu Yu's family will not let go easily." Tang Ning looked in a certain direction and said, "Let nature take its course." Tang Grenzai reopened on the third day after it was burned. This time, they not only released all the follow-up content of The Legend of White Snake, but also Tang Ningning's new work Lotus Lamp has been published in 10 volumes. The next 10 volumes will be printed at a faster pace and will be sold out in 5 days. It's great that Bai Suhen's family is finally reunited. Miss Tang's new work is as beautiful as ever. The Third Holy Mother is so pitiful, being crushed under Mount Hua by her own brother. How can there be such a cruel brother and uncle in this world? Even if you are making up a story, it would be a bit too outrageous, right? Haha, how come there are no such people anymore? The Third Holy Mother was only suppressed for 15 years. In this capital, there is someone who was imprisoned by his own brother for 18 years. Oh my God, this girl Ning Ning is going to fight against the Tang family to the end. Tang Grenzai reopened, and readers in the capital were filled with joy. On the contrary, the Tang family was in a haze. Tang Hui did not go to the Ministry of Rites today. There were two story books on the table in front of him. One is The Legend of the White Snake and the other is The Lotus Lantern. The common people rebuked the Tang family for being ruthless and unjust, and the imperial censors in the court rushed to impeach him. The arson case has yet to be resolved. It only took a few months for the Tang family to go from being respected by everyone to becoming notorious today. This was originally just a family matter of the Tang family, and even if everyone in the capital knew about it, it would not have a serious impact. However, with the guidance of these two popular storybooks, the impact of this matter has been directly expanded to thousands of people. 100 times. Tang Hui looked down and said with some self-deprecation, "Is it because of these two books?" Tang Chi was also a little hard to accept, because just two scripts had ruined the reputation of the Tang family. Even though the Tang family had a great background, it could not stop the people from talking, and it could not interfere with the Imperial Academy, which had been intervened by King Kong. As soon as the arson case of Tang Grenzai came out, they could not take any measures. Instead, they had to worry that if there were any mistakes in Tang Grenzai again, the people and the court would be the first to suspect the Tang family. Tang Hui pondered for a long time before speaking, "Let's end the arson case here." Tang Chi thought for a while and asked, "What about these two books?" "Let it go." Tang Hui waved his hand and said, "Don't miss important events because of a small fish." For the Tang family, the first priority is to ensure the power of Prince Duan in the court. In this process, whatever the Tang family loses, they can get back twice as much after Prince Duan ascends the throne. If these things mess up the situation and affect the overall situation, then the gain outweighs the loss. Tang Chi nodded and said, "I'll make arrangements." Although the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple are still investigating the Tang Grenzai arson case, the interest in the court has obviously subsided. Tang Zhao once ordered people to smash the Tang Grenzai. The Tang family apologized and paid a huge sum of money to the Lu family and other families. It is said that the money was enough to buy several Tang Grenzai. The incident of smashing up the store was over, and the incident of arson also subsided. Everyone knows that this is already the attitude expressed by the Tang family, and it will be of no benefit to anyone if they continue to dwell on this matter. Although His Majesty is dissatisfied with the Tang family and intends to weaken it, weakening does not mean eliminating it. This incident has only affected the reputation of the Tang family in certain aspects. The Tang family in the court is still the Tang family that can make all the changes. Lu Jun put a stack of banknotes on the table and said, "The Tang family is willing to pay 100,000 taels this time. Brother Tang deserves these 50,000 taels." The Tang family was willing to pay 100,000 taels, naturally not for compensation, but to give an attitude to calm the matter. Even the Lu family and other families were not willing to offend the Tang family too much, so they walked down the steps. Lu Jun looked at him and said, "Brother Tang, you can rest assured. After this incident, they will definitely not attack Tang Grenzai again." Tang Ning nodded and smiled, and said, "Brother Lu, thank you for your hard work." "It should be." Lu Jun waved his hand and said, "After all, I have a stake in this shop. If anything happens in the future, just say hello to Brother Tang." After Lu Jun left, Xiaoju looked at him and said, 50,000 taels is not bad. There is concubine Hui and Prince Duan in the palace. Your Majesty will not really do anything to the Tang family. Before you, no one has ever done anything to the Tang family. The family is forced to this point. Tang Ning suddenly stood up and walked out of the court. Xiaoju hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" "Tang family." "Tang family, isn't this the Tang family?" "Which Tang family are you going to?" Xiaoju murmured, and was stunned, with an expression of disbelief on his face. "Tang Mansion." There are many Tang mansions in the capital, but when it comes to Tang mansions, the first thing that comes to people's minds must be the Tang dynasty's mansion located to the east of the capital. Three outstanding figures from the same family are in the court, the legitimate daughter is a concubine in the palace, and the prince is in the limelight. There are few families in the capital that are more prominent than the Tang family. But prominence comes from prominence. In recent days, many pedestrians passing by the Tang mansion have spat at the Tang mansion. This directly led to the fact that the concierge of the Tang mansion would stare at someone when he saw someone passing by the door. If anyone dared to do anything uncivilized, he would rush forward and punch and kick him. This is the Tang mansion. I heard that Tang Shangshu imprisoned his own sister in the mansion for 18 years. Is it true? Of course it's true. No one in the capital knows about this. Such a ruthless and unjust person can actually become the Minister of Rights. The court is really blind, bah. It's exactly like what's written in the storybook. Grandma is so stupid. If a person like this can become a high-ranking official, I'll be damned too. When the concierge of Tang Mansion saw someone spitting at Tang Mansion again on the street, he immediately became furious. You two, stop. The two of them ran wildly, and the concierge chased them all the way, but only kicked one of them on the butt, and even fell down. He got up, dusted himself off, and when he came back panting, he saw someone standing at the door of Tang Mansion. This is a young man, tall and extremely handsome. There is a woman beside the young man, tall and pretty. The two of them looked very familiar at first sight. When the concierge walked over, a smile appeared on his face and asked, "Who are you looking for, sir?" The young master looked at the Tang Mansion and said, "Please inform the person in charge of your mansion that Tang Ning will pay you a visit." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fortunate Young Gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 250. The eldest master is not here, the second master is in charge of the mansion. Please wait a moment, I will go in and report now. This young man and woman are outstanding in appearance and temperament. They are either rich or noble. The gatekeeper of the Tang mansion did not dare to neglect them. When he was about to go back to report, he suddenly seemed to remember something, his body shook, turned around, and said in a trembling voice, "Tang, Tang Ning, which Tang Ning?" Tang Ning looked at him and said, "It's the Tang Ning you are thinking of." The gatekeeper's face showed disbelief when he heard it. Everyone in the capital knows that the new champion Tang Ning has an unclear relationship with the Tang family. In recent days, the Tang family has suffered a lot at his hands. How dare he come to the Tang family at this time? You, wait a moment, I will report right away, he said with a frightened expression, and ran quickly to the Tang mansion. When he crossed the threshold, he accidentally tripped and almost fell. Tang Ning stood in the shade, turned to look at Tang Yao Yao, and said, "This is not a dangerous place. I can come alone. You don't have to come with me." Tang Yao Yao glanced at him and said, "Since you are here, stop talking nonsense." Tang Ning shut up and stopped talking nonsense. Although it was in broad daylight, the Tang family could not do anything to him, but just in case, it was better to bring Tang Yejing with him. At the Tang mansion, Tang Chi was also stunned for a moment after listening to the report of the doorman, and then asked, "Who did you say?" The doorman looked up and whispered, "He said his name is Tang Ning." "Tang Ning," Tang Zhao slammed the table and said angrily, "He dared to come here. Today, he entered the Tang mansion and don't think about leaving." Tang Chi stretched out his hand, motioning him to shut up, and then said lightly, "Tell him to wait in the side hall." Tang Ning and Tang Yao Yao didn't wait outside the door for long before the doorman came out again. This time, the doorman's attitude towards them was obviously not as enthusiastic as before. He glanced at Tang Ning and Tang Yao Yao, and said indifferently, The second master has an important guest to meet. You wait in the side hall first. Tang Ning followed the doorman into the Tang mansion and saw a woman walking towards him. The woman was holding an apple in her hand. When she saw him, she stopped walking and the expression on her face was no different from seeing a ghost in broad daylight. Tang Ning walked past her, picked up the apple, took a bite, and then put it back in her hand. He had just sat down in the side hall when Tang Shui strode in and asked, "What are you doing here?" Tang Ning looked at her and asked in confusion, "Can't I come?" Tang Shui was anxious and angry. This was naturally not a question of whether he could come, but how and when to come. He didn't come when the Tang family invited him, but came when he had completely offended the Tang family and almost tore his face apart, and it was impossible to reconcile. What would the Tang family think? After doing those things that embarrassed the Tang family, he came to the Tang family to show off? If some people get angry, he will be in danger today. Don't play dumb, Tang Shui glared at him and said, "What on earth are you doing here?" Tang Ning shook his head and said, "I just came here to have a cup of tea and sit for a while, but it's a pity that they didn't even give me a cup of tea." In fact, even if the Tang family offered him tea, he wouldn't drink it. Although they wouldn't poison the tea, he wouldn't be able to tell if they spit. Think about it from another perspective. If he was a member of the Tang family, spitting in the tea would be a minor offense. Tang Shui looked at him helplessly and said, "They won't see you, nor will they let you see my aunt." Tang Ning took out a set of mahjong made of thin bamboo from his arms and said, "I'm free anyway, why don't we play a few games?" Among the people he knows now, Su Mei should be the best at playing mahjong. Although Tang Yao Yao is very accurate in betting on other things, she has almost never won at mahjong. If the stakes are higher and they continue to play like this, Tang Ning can not only make her lose her belly band, but also win her people. Unfortunately, I can't win money playing mahjong with her, and I can't always win her. If she is unhappy, she will find a chance to retaliate, which is not worth the loss. Tang Shui doesn't know how to play mahjong, so he stood by and watched for a while before joining in. Facing two rookies, Tang Ning was invincible and won all their money in 1 hour. After Tang Ning won again, Tang Shui threw the mahjong on the table and said angrily, "It's outrageous. You dare to win your sister's money." After that, he grabbed a handful of banknotes from Tang Ning, which was more than she took out herself. Tang Yao Yao looked at her, took away the rest of Tang Ning's money, looked at him, and said, "This is fair." There was no need to offend these two witches for a few hundred taels of silver. Tang Ning thought he was unlucky, stood up, and said, let's go back." Tang Yao Yao put the banknotes in his arms and asked, "Don't you have something else to do?" Tang Ning said regretfully, "There's not even a cup of tea. If I don't leave now, I'll die of thirst. When you come tomorrow, remember to bring water with you." He and Tang Yao Yao walked back to the front of the mansion and saw an old man walking in from outside. Tang Ning glanced at the old man and suddenly asked, "Old man, does your arm still hurt?" The old man looked down at his empty sleeves, raised his head, and said calmly, "It doesn't hurt anymore." Tang Ning asked in confusion, "How did the old man break his arm?" "I accidentally broke it when I was fighting with someone," the old man said casually and walked past them. Tang Ning sighed and said, "This fighting and killing is not good at all. Last year, I saw a few wild dogs fighting for food on the street. When I got closer, I found that they were fighting for an arm. The government doesn't care about these wild dogs that harm people." The old man paused, and clenched his fist with his only remaining arm. The back hall of the Tang mansion. Tang Chi looked at the servant and asked, "Did they just sit in the side hall for an hour?" "Not just sitting," the servant thought for a while and said, "They talked to the eldest lady for a long time, and then left." Tang Chi frowned and whispered, "What does he want to do?" "I thought he came here today to negotiate terms or make demands with the Tang family, but I didn't expect that he just sat in the side hall for an hour and left on his own. Even though he had been in the court for many years and was best at guessing people's hearts, he had to admit that he couldn't see Tang Ning's thoughts at all. Since he came to Beijing, everything he did would be far beyond his expectations. The servant looked up and said nervously, "Master, when he left, he said he would come again tomorrow." "Then let him continue to wait in the side hall." Tang Chi clenched his fist and said, "I want to see how long he can endure." Tang Grenzai sold out the entire Legend of the White Snake 2 days ago, and Baolian Lantern was also directly released in 10 volumes. In the next few days, no new volumes will be released. Even so, there are still many customers today, most of whom did not buy after it was sold out. Su Xian's family is finally reunited. Those who read it a few days ago were so distressed. I heard about the ending yesterday, so I dared to buy it today, for fear that Miss Ning Ning would write a tragedy. When has Miss Ning Ning ever written a tragedy? In my opinion, although the beginning of Baolian Lantern looks depressing, it must also have a reunion ending. Xiao Chenxiang will definitely be able to rescue his mother. Hey, Xiao Chenxiang has a famous teacher to teach him and can rescue his mother, but novels are novels after all. How can there be so many reunions in real life? Yes, I heard yesterday that the top scholar went to the Tang family in person and wanted to see his mother. As a result, he was sent by the Tang family to wait in the side hall for an hour. Until the end, he did not see his mother. As soon as this was said, everyone showed surprised expressions. Who told you that? I heard from the cousin of my 7th uncle's neighbor's 2nd aunt's daughter's uncle's cousin. Your 7th uncle's neighbor's 2nd aunt's daughter's uncle's cousin. Yes, my 7th uncle's cousin is a servant in the Tang family. He saw it with his own eyes. The top scholar is really pitiful. He was ignored in the Tang family for an hour and didn't even have a cup of tea. The Tang family is too much. They separated their mother and son for 18 years, and now they are not even allowed to see each other. Are they still human? Study hard and work hard to get the top scholar, but in the end, mother and son can't see each other. It's pitiful. The Tang family has done a lot of bad things. Aren't they afraid of retribution? At the Tang family, Tang Chi took a sip of tea leisurely. After listening to the servant's report, there was no change on his face. There is no need to worry about too much debt. Anyway, the Tang family has been scolded by the people of the capital for this matter, so they don't mind them scolding them a few more times. He wants to see what other tricks this new champion has besides spreading rumors and making insinuations. Fortunate young gentleman. Author, Rong Xiao Rong. Chapter 251. The Tang family is really shameless this time. No matter how much the people scold them, there is no reaction at all. You have been here for 4 days in a row, and no one in charge is willing to see you. If people become shameless, they will still. There is really no way. Xiaoju had been paying attention to the progress of the matter. After thinking about it, he looked at Tang Ning and said, "The grudge between you and the Tang family is actually a family matter of the Tang family. Even His Majesty cannot interfere, but you can ask. Your Majesty has decreed that you should see your mother. This is human nature, and I think your Majesty will not refuse. Even if the Tang family is unwilling, they will not dare to resist the decree." Tang Ning said casually, "Let's watch it again." "Would you like to watch it again?" Xiaoju looked at his indifferent expression and suddenly asked, "Don't you have a plan for a long time? It's not your character to go to the Tang family and sit on the bench every day. You actually persisted for 4 years. God, what are your plans? Tell me." Tang Ning thought for a while, looked at Xiaoju, and asked, "Do you think that if I ask His Majesty to do this, will His Majesty agree?" Xiaoju thought for a moment and analyzed. "It is impossible that His Majesty will directly ask you to take your mother out, but if it is just a one-time meeting, His Majesty cannot refuse. It has been spread among the people that the Tang family is shameless. Your Majesty still wants it? Tang Ning thought about it and felt that what Xiao Ju said made sense. He happened to be going to the palace tomorrow, and the medical books from the Imperial Hospital had not been compiled yet. He had to go there and read them every few days. He had one more thing to do today. He walked back to the room, sat next to Xiaoru, and asked, "Are you ready?" Xiao Ru put down the needle and thread and said with a smile, "It will be ready in a moment, but brother Xiaoning, since we are asking for something from someone, isn't this gift a little light?" Tang Ning put her arms around her shoulders and said, "When it comes to gift giving, it's not that the heavier the gift, the better. The most important thing is that the recipient likes it. Besides, our family is not as big as King Kong, so all the gifts come in one box delivered." Xiao Ru nodded and said, "I listen to brother Xiaoning. In fact, it is best to marry someone like Xiao Ru and Xiao Yi. One is well behaved and the other is well educated. The negative examples are Tang Yao Yao and Tang Shui. I don't know what evil the old Tang family has done, and how they can purify such witches. Even Su Mei is a little better than them. Although her gentleness and charm are all fake, she can still pretend. Tang Nuxia has always been herself and doesn't even bother to pretend. Su Mei did not sleep today, but was playing on the swing in the yard. Judging from her expression, she was in a bad mood. When she saw Tang Ning walking in, she said in a sour tone, "Ah, what kind of wind brought you here today?" Tang Ning walked to the yard and said, "Just take a walk and give you a gift." "A gift?" Su Mei was stunned, and then asked happily, "Do you know my birthday is coming soon?" "Your birthday has come so soon?" Tang Ning asked in surprise. "I remember you said at the beginning of the year that your 20th birthday just passed not long ago. Why did it come so soon?" Su Mei said with a dark face, "At the beginning of the year, my 20th birthday was less than half a year away. Is half a year a long time?" Soon Tang Ning shook her head simply. She was immediately untouchable by the 21-year-old girl. Su Mei suddenly became wary and said, "Since you don't know my birthday, why did you give me a gift?" Tang Ning thought for a while and said, "We are friends. Do friends need a reason to give each other gifts? To be courteous for nothing is to be either an adulterer or a thief." Su Mei looked at him and said, "You have something to ask of me." Tang Ning had a look of pain on her face as she shook her head and said, "I gave you a gift with good intentions, but you have disappointed me so much." Su Mei shook his arm and said in a cooing voice, "I was wrong just now. What gift did you give me?" After looking at the appearance of her young lady, the little maid standing in the yard couldn't help but tremble. "Turn your back." In the room, Su Mei opened a cloth bag that Tang Ning was carrying when she came here, took out something from it, and asked, "What is this?" There is an old saying that goes well, if she is new to the world, take her to see all the prosperity of the world. If her heart has gone through vicissitudes, take her to ride the merry-go-round. If she can't sleep, give her a big rag doll. Many girls have to hold a doll to fall asleep. In most cases, this is a sign of lack of security. Tang Ning couldn't make Su Mei's doll herself, so she sewed one for her. Not only that, there were several sachets hidden inside the doll's body. Inside the sachets were spices that would help calm her nerves and should help with her insomnia. Symptoms can help a little. Xiao Ru did all the needlework, mainly because Tang Ning asked Su Mei for something, and she couldn't get rid of the things she made by herself. Holding her while sleeping at night might not help her sleep, but would frighten her even more insomnia. The rag doll was taller than Su Mei. Tang Ning placed it on the bed and said, "You can try holding it when you sleep in the future. It might work." Su Mei lay on the bed, rolled around with the doll in her arms, and said, "It's really comfortable and smells good." She hugged the doll, looked at Tang Ning, and said, "The gift has been delivered, you can go back." Tang Ning was stunned. How could this woman be so realistic and forget about the old person when she got a new baby? He sat down by the bed and said, "Don't worry, Let's talk some more. Sumei covered her mouth and yawned, and said, there's nothing to talk about. I'm going to bed. No, I have something to ask you for help. Didn't you say you have nothing to ask of me? I'm not begging you, I'm asking for your help. No help. Tang Ning took the doll back from her arms and walked towards the door while saying, I won't give it to you if you don't help me. Sumei jumped off the bed and sneered, this is my territory, so you can come and leave whenever you want. In the early morning, Tang Ning sat in the carriage entering the palace, feeling drowsy. This woman, Sumei, was simply a bandit. Having a baby was not enough, she had to let him sleep with her for 2 whole hours. As a result, he was awake for most of the night last night and didn't fall asleep until late at night. The re-editing of medical books in Taiyuan Hospital is a huge project, and many ancient prescriptions need to be scrutinized. Although he has only read a few medical books under the influence of the old director, his knowledge is hundreds or even thousands of years longer than theirs. Often, can put forward some constructive opinions. After coming out of the imperial hospital, he looked at the eunuch who was following him and said, I have something to ask your majesty to see. Can you please let me know? His Majesty naturally did not meet him just because he wanted to, but the person in front of him was a new champion and was valued by His Majesty. The eunuch thought for a while and said, Master Tang, please wait here for a while. I will go and pass the news. Tang Ning stood in front of the imperial hospital for a while. Not long after, the eunuch came back and said, Master Tang, your Majesty has summoned me. Please follow me to the imperial study. This was not the first time Tang Ning met the emperor, so he felt calm. However, when he was led into the royal study by the eunuch and saw Emperor Chen eating a bowl of assorted pots, his heart was still unavoidably shaken. Although she couldn't see clearly what was in his bowl, Tang Ning was familiar with the taste. Chen Huang put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth, and asked, What do you want from me? Tang Ning actually came here because she wanted Chen Huang to fulfill his promise. When he rescued concubine Shu, Emperor Chen had promised him a generous reward, but at that time he said that he would wait until the imperial examination was over. Now that the imperial examination has been over for so long, he has not mentioned it again. Most likely, it is forget. If Chen Huang didn't say it, he couldn't mention it directly, and he didn't know how to indirectly mention it. He couldn't point to his bowl and ask him, did he feel that this bowl of assorted pots was very similar to the promise he owed him? Tang Ning thought for a moment and asked, at the beginning of the year, concubine Shu was feeling unwell. It has been several months now. I wonder if her illness will relapse. You are thoughtful. Chen Huang looked at him, nodded with satisfaction, and said, thanks to you for pointing out the error in the prescription, concubine Shu's illness has not recurred in the past few months. This way I can rest assured. Tang Ning breathed a long sigh of relief and said, it's fine that concubine Shu is fine. As for the reward your Majesty mentioned at that time, after thinking about it, I still feel that I can't accept it. I almost forgot if you didn't tell me. Emperor Chen thought for a moment, looked at him and said, I have always made clear rewards and punishments. Merits will naturally be rewarded. Tell me, what reward do you want? Tang Ning cupped her hands and said, I am also a doctor. It is my bounden duty to treat illnesses and save people. I dare not ask for rewards. Emperor Chen waved his hand, I said I would reward you and I would not go back on my promise. That day I was taking into consideration that you had just come to the capital and would not be too sharp. But now I don't have such worries. Just tell me. Tang Ning looked embarrassed, I really can't have it. Chen Huang thought for a while and said, since you refuse like this, then I. Tang Ning said hurriedly, you have nothing to say, how can I put your Majesty in trouble? I suddenly thought of something, and I would like to ask your Majesty to fulfill it. Chen Huang looked at him and asked, oh, what's the matter? Tang Ning bowed and said, I sincerely request your majesty to issue an order to allow me to see my biological mother. Emperor Chen thought for a while. If Tang Ning wanted to take out the second young lady of the Tang family, he wouldn't be able to make such a decision. After all, it was a family matter of the Tang family. But if it was just a one-time meeting, it would be reasonable and he wouldn't have any embarrassment. He looked at Tang Ning, nodded, and said, I'm sure about this matter.